Visibility is a very quick aspect given the fact that the whole world is moving towards the social media and taking support of a lot of AI tools, and it looks like that it's not vanity anymore. However, the real business model and the real structure comes when you are looking deep inside any business and keeping it from a perspective of how you're going to make revenues.
Today we have Aparna Bajpai with us, an entrepreneur, investor, global speaker, and founder of Being She, one of the UAE's most impactful women entrepreneurship platform. She is also the co-founder of Oryx Real Estate, a boutique real estate advisory focused on premium investments on high value clients. From building communities to shaping visibility for women leaders and advising in luxury real estate, Aparna has created a powerful ecosystem connecting entrepreneurs, brands, and opportunities in the UAE. So let's get started with Aparna Bajpai. Thank you so much, Aparna, first of all, for coming at Business Banking and Beyond.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Hemant. It's my pleasure.
So first of all, women in entrepreneurship in UAE, is it reality or is it social media visible?
So honestly speaking, I feel it's a mix of both. Okay, businesses are being made successful by women entrepreneurs in real, and the reason being, UAE does support a lot of women entrepreneurship, and the way it pushes the innovation and business growth, and especially under the leadership of His Highness Sheikh Rashid bin Al Maktoum. It's been an absolute delight and pleasure to see how the whole ecosystem is supporting the women entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship in general. So that's for sure. There is real growth. However, definitely there is kind of amplified visibility where a lot of times things may look bigger than actually they are. And that's somewhere you have to understand whether you're building a successful business model or you are only creating content for the visibility aspect.
Well, a lot of not just women, but a lot of founders are getting tricked in this part of being visible or real business model. Can you shed little bit more light on that?
So, look, these days, visibility is a very quick aspect, given the fact that, the whole world is moving towards the social media and taking support of a lot of AI tools. And, it's been, it looks like that it's not vanity anymore. However, the real business model and the real structure comes when you are actually looking deep inside any business and keeping it from a perspective of how you're going to make revenues, how it's going to be sustainable for the future growth, not only from a perspective that it looks good from outside, but the actual value that's been offered due to which you have actually started that business is missing out.
So it is more about business, not just about creating the content specifically, which somewhere has become the most important aspect of business nowadays, that if you create a video, that means your business will automatically happen. That's what. Well, thank you so much for putting that, because I also believe in the same. When we had a call, I also discussed on the same points. On the same lines, if a simple woman moving from India to UAE or any other part of the world to UAE to start a business, what could be the first steps she could be taking in the most wise manner that the business is being built, not just the social media profile?
Okay, so let's keep these two aspects separate. So, first is about the intention of the growth of our business. Now, India is an economy that gives you depth and scale. However, UAE supports you with fast global expansion, exposure, and the first, I would say, the access to the right kind of channels and network. Now, you have to understand in which state or which level your business is into and what exactly from the growth aspect you're looking at. So, if you've decided that now I have that kind of stability that I have achieved in the India market, and now I want to move the similar concept to the UAE market, of course, that's a great thing. But here, it can be, a constant pressure on you of, having the right positioning and visibility aspect that again comes from the clarity of the business model that you have.
Okay. So since you again mentioned about the visibility aspect, let's go deeper and understand difference between the personal branding aspect and the real business. Why it is important in nowadays to build your own brand, which we call again the personal branding aspect, but equally important to understand the fundamentals of the business.
As I said that, let's keep it in the two different aspect. One is about the core business aspect from the perspective of, what is your business structure? What is your business model? How fast you're going to be monetizing it? And the other part is about the personal branding aspect. Now, a lot of times people do confuse between both of them. However, what I have seen over the years and with my own experience, that personal branding aspect and your business model has to go hand in hand. However, personal branding has to be from a right intention where the clarity about your business, what you're building, what you're selling, how you're positioning yourself has to be absolutely clear. And then once you have that clarity and you build that positioning through the personal branding, of course, then monetizing it becomes easier.
Okay. Can you give me some example of from your women community where this case perfectly fits?
So, a lot many times because we have this absolutely gorgeous program, with Being She community where it's like a whole journey where we handhold them from having the understanding of clarity of their businesses, and then how we have to guide them strategically from the marketing aspect for their personal branding positioning, and the recognition, credibility aspect, the trust builds up. There have been a lot of examples from the perspective of, the life coaches, from the wellness industry, from the education industry, where we actually analyzed about what exactly is the core business selling of this women founder. And I always say that, women businesses are like two sides of a coin, the personal branding aspect and the business aspect. And once you have again the clarity about it, and with us when they built it up, a lot of them found their journeys to be more meaningful, more successful in terms of the growth aspect, in terms of the again the right visibility aspect, and monetizing those aspects of their business which might be ignored earlier were more clear to them. Their offerings were very clear to the market, and that's how they gain a lot of momentum.
So their niche was very clear to them.
So that's the first step. I always say clarity comes before visibility, and visibility comes before positioning. And once you are clear with these three, monetizing becomes much easier.
Well, AI is talk of the town. When we speak about coaches, I've seen, or this is the data, not I have seen specifically that everybody is asking anything from ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is becoming your personal coach in some way. And then we have in industries personal coaches in every aspect. All the types of coaches are available nowadays. So how do we compete with AI in that aspect, especially in this industry of coaching?
I don't think, we should ever think about competing AI. I think we have to accompany AI, and AI can be a great tool if used wisely and mindfully. You cannot totally depend on it. But I think we are in today's world where we are blessed to have these kind of tools, and, which can be very creative. At the same time, you have to keep the human tone to it, the human touch to it. And you must not forget that as a woman entrepreneur, or, generally any entrepreneur, why did they start the journey? And what is the problem they're solving for the community or the society? So once that is clear to them and they stick to that goal, consistency is there. Accompanying AI, I think it's a fabulous way of creating that meaningful impact.
So a lot of consultants, coaches speak about personal branding.
Right.
Everybody is pitching personal branding from digital marketing agency to your personal coach to your business coach. But does really personal branding pays off to a founder?
Yes, it does. Again, I'll say that if it's done with clarity. See, what is personal branding? Personal branding is not only talking about your business, it's about you as a person And because you as a person who you are have thought of certain business idea to solve a problem in the community, you have developed that business model. So that aspect of personal branding, which is so individual, which is so personal, has to come out. But today's time, just because, as you said, that every second agency is offering you the personal branding, it has more become like a norm, which without clarity and deep understanding of the person for which they have to develop the personal branding, becomes difficult. So again, it all comes down to the clarity. It all comes down to the purpose and the vision of you yourself as a person, because that's why you are called as an entrepreneur, and that's how you are positioning yourself as a personal brand. And extension of you is your business. So that channel, that the whole model has to be very clear to any agency, any coach, or any consultant, whoever you are going to and consulting yourself.
Since you mentioned that a lot of clarity is required to do personal branding, otherwise it's just posting out or checking that box as per your agency, what do you think are the biggest mistakes by a woman entrepreneur specifically while getting onto this journey of personal branding?
I think again, Hemant, coming back to the original questions, women do tend to get confused about, what are the first steps. Now, what happens is, okay, you come up with an idea and you want to become an entrepreneur. And first of all, I really say that it is a very glorified term, entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship comes with a lot of responsibility. It comes with a lot of risk. It comes with a lot of burden on your shoulders and responsibilities, which if you are not consistent, you're not sure, it's not a passion thing anymore. Passion is a very wrong word. So once you are sure that yes, you have to take this path, you're ready for it. Again, coming back to the personal branding aspect, and whether the business model is clear or not, whether how fast your business is going to be monetizing it for you. That's one mistake that a lot of women founder does, is they keep the monetizing part later. They think they start with the personal branding part first, business branding part first, but actual model of the revenue or the monetization is something they think that okay, it will automatically happen. No, you should have a clear business plan in place. And personal branding is important, business branding is important, but making money out of that business revenue, your cash flows are the first things. So once that is there, you are sure of, definitely rest of the thing and the visibility aspect can follow.
So basically, build the business first, parallelly build your personal branding and business branding, because that is even same feeling I have with a lot of founders, not just with women founders, that we think videos is our business. But videos is a mirror towards our business or a reflection of our business that we have done well, and that's how we have done. And we are talking about our stories. But people nowadays have started believing that creating videos itself is a monetization a factor.
Again, coming back to, are you really building a business model which is absolutely clear to your offerings, or you are just being a content factory? So,
Got it.
and there is a clear distinction between becoming an influencer versus an entrepreneur.
Exactly. I think that's a big difference. And that's the game, that are you making yourself an influencer or an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur who's doing a branding is a different thing, but getting into an influencership is a completely different ball game. And that is where my next question is, that nowadays I've sensed that visibility somewhere is becoming more important than capability of delivering. Is that true from your perspective?
Both of them are important. Visibility gets you open a lot of doors, but your capability builds the credibility and trust and keeps you in that room, which actually the door you have opened through the visibility aspect. So I think again, these are the steps. It's a whole mechanism, and you cannot just jump or skip the initial steps and reach to the top step. Then it's not solid, it's not sustainable. So I think as I keep saying, clarity is the first aspect. then visibility, then how you're positioning yourself through that visibility, and then how you are, the revenues and the monetization of your business is following that is absolutely important.
Now it's time for the elephant to be addressed in the room, is being she, which is so well known in the women circle and in the UAE about the community power it holds. So I want to know about how did this idea came up to you? What's your vision about being she? What is being she?
Being she, the name defines itself, being yourself. It's all about self. So I've always believed knowledge is power, and learning and networking, growing yourself, growing your own skills is the most empowering thing for any woman. And how it all started was from the fact that, there was a repeated pattern in the market. There were communities, but on a very surface level. More than the community, I always believed in the personal growth. And that is something very unique with us, where, we give a lot of focus on each and every member or a woman entrepreneur or a professional, and design programs and the services around it so that they get their personal growth aspect through it, and then of course the networking and the relevant business referrals, a lot of personal branding aspect, again the right way of being visible, how you can get the proper recognition so that your credibility and trust aspect becomes bigger, and how you are positioned well, as a thought leader in your industry is something that we practice a lot. So it's been over 8 years, and we have over 80 plus nationalities, all women coming out from different industries. I think we are catering at the moment almost about 30 plus industries, be it from automobile to wellness to health to education to sustainability. Yeah, so it's been it's a very niche kind of programs that we have, and it's mainly for women who are ready for their self growth and ready to reciprocate and receive the kind of the services that we offer.
So if somebody has to get into being she, what is the first step? What's the second step? What are the programs? What can she expect when she's part of the community?
So we have two major verticals under Being She. One vertical is purely from the aspects of these bigger flagship events that we do, and they are mainly designed from the aspect of giving very solid recognition, and the eclodes, and giving you the spotlight, basically. So these are award and recognition programs that we have, and it's been successfully running over 6-7 years now, and they have become like a big IP in the industry. A lot of women with great experience, and for that matter, now we have started for corporates as well, where they are actually well positioning their women leadership, and they are constantly supporting the female aspect and the gender aspect. So they get a lot of opportunity, being coming closer to the community, showcasing their journeys and milestones. So that's one vertical. The other vertical under Being She is about the annual membership, which is the community aspect. And that's somewhere it's like for the whole year around, we have different tiers of membership depending on the readiness of the women, business owner or the entrepreneur or the professional or the women who are aspiring to become an entrepreneur. So there are certain ways we analyze them through the, forms and everything, and we do some initial, strategic calls with them. And then we suggest that which tier do they actually belong and where they should start from. And then we design a whole year aspect, for them in terms of the services and handholding and benefits, and suggesting them the media aspect, the PR angles, marketing aspect, their self-learning and growth, coming closer to the community through our, regular gatherings and networking, referring them to the right businesses and, giving them the right business referrals, supporting them. So a lot of such activities take place, and it has been really valuable to these women from both the aspects, growing their businesses and growing their personal brands and having that right personal development.
Got it. So it's pretty much covering all the aspect of their personality, be it in terms of personal or business. If there are two, three things which you can mention related to being she, which you really like, which helps members.
I think all the aspects of being Shri have always been admiring since the time I've started, because I was blessed to have a great team behind me, and the kind of collaborations we always received, and the partners came in the picture, and the stakeholders, they've been extremely supportive. I think the couple of aspects coming from the perspective of giving them the credibility, because the minute they are on our recognition programs like, the Excellence Awards, and they are very specific to the industries, different industries, it gives them a chance to apply that on their, email headers, and, the LinkedIn profiles and everywhere else. And because it's a known brand, people do tend to, get a lot of value out of it. So the credibility aspect, the recognition aspect, the clarity aspect, because with us, they tend to identify, the gaps in their businesses and how they can improve it. And the ones who are aspiring to become entrepreneurs, they understand how to network well, how to come close to the community, how to understand how the business world can work, because there's so many experienced entrepreneurs in the community. So I think these are the beautiful aspects.
Since we have mentioned about networking now, there are a lot of networking communities popping out nowadays since 3 4 years. I would say after the COVID, we have small communities and big, like BNI's, corporate connections, and many others are there, small as well. What is the difference, or there are some learnings which you have taken to start being she in that, or what exactly differentiates being she in that perspective?
So there are definitely a lot of communities, but again, going back to I would say rather the uniqueness of being she than comparing it to anyone else, because every founder has its own vision to start a community or to lay a platform. My vision was always to stick to a very strong outcome that a member can receive through the community which I am building. And that outcome is very important for me as a founder and my team, that we keep renovating, innovating, bringing in the new ideas. And as per the market shifts, we keep changing the benefits and services. So we don't stick to the old formulas. There are many times, if the time requires something special or the attention is required, and we are capable of doing that, we immediately build that aspect or that element that can help our members, and we just bring it to the practicality. So I think any community has to be more outcome driven rather than just having the networking aspect, because being in Dubai especially, I think networking is everywhere. And how specific networking you have to do and how relevant it is for your own purpose is what you have to define always.
Yeah, I think that's very important. You're not, again, if it is in terms of business or personality and networking, I think our head of marketing Rose always says this, and I have this in my mind: your network is your net worth. She keeps on saying this. So yeah, there is something stuck in my mind as well, that it is very important where you socialize and where your business networking is happening. If I have to put one benefit of being she, which it gives to members, the most important benefit, what do you think is that one?
That one benefit would be power.
Power to the woman.
Power to the women. And why I chose the word power is because it has multiple branches attached to it. Power being yourself, power being clear in your business, power being visible, power being getting the relevant networking. I think power would be the right word.
Very nice. And I think somewhere, whenever I sit with women entrepreneurs or women business coaches, even doctors as well, on the same podcast, they have mentioned one biggest weakness of women is that insecurity and weakness, that they can do what men can do, or what they can lead, they can do anything. It's just their own insecurity which is stopping them, nothing else. they have much more brain power and execution to do anything. And I say that because I think 70% of our leadership in Dangad as well is women. So the CEO is Jyoti, we have head of marketing Rose, we have head of process and automation Mega, we have community manager who's Kanu. So I mean, everywhere I have realized this, that they're doing an amazing job.
Absolutely, I agree.
That's why I'm sitting lightly and doing the pod. Coming to the UAE, a market for women, I think it's very important to discuss this aspect as well, because when I compare it to India, UK, or any part of the world, what do you think it's better in UAE for the women compared to many other countries?
Is the system that UAE government and the visionary leadership has actually put in place. Whether it's business setup, to the systems, to the exposure, to the global markets, to the connections, the clarity, transparency, the speed is something that is very, very good and convenient for women. Even somebody who's very new to any business will not find it very challenging to start from here. So I think that aspect of ecosystem.
Since you come from the West, you come from UK, you have been there. I mean, the country has been colonized long way back. Why still UAE is better in terms of women entrepreneurship comparing it to West?
Look, I think, again, UAE, the whole model has been built from a very fresh perspective. And the vision that the leadership has, it's amazing. It's not anywhere close to any orthodox mentality. And they have proven it over the years that how they have grown it so successfully and without any interference, without any kind of hinges coming to it. Even the recent situations, which UAE has gone through, the way the system has supported the safety aspect, and the growth and the progress, the entire ecosystem, drives you kind of way that is so positive and so supportive, and it's very encouraging. So I think I wouldn't. I don't believe in comparing any countries, because every country has its own beauty and its own way of doing stuff. Some countries are good from a perspective of large demography, which sometimes we tend to miss out over here. But then again, I mean, UAE being a very, very unique part, and I think a lot of other countries are going to be adapting this kind of model very soon.
When if we see the religious perspective of it, still saying it's an Islamic country. I've been in here since 11 years. I've never ever felt the level of inclusivity UAE offers, the level of safety. I was listening to an industry expert, woman expert in India. She was mentioning about UAE and India and some part of the West as well. What is the differentiation? So she mentions for a woman to prosper, the first thing she needs is a safety of herself, her thoughts, and that's where she put a lot of things related to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is one thing which brings UAE on top notch. And when women walk around, speak around, they feel that comfort.
See, Hemant, I'm wearing multiple hats in the businesses as well. Being She is just being one venture of mine. The other ventures are into hospitality and real estate. And I have seen majorly now the women investors in real estate are, mindfully investing a lot, because they get that kind of clarity here, which is missing maybe in other part of the world. And in fact, we have a lot of, women investors coming from abroad, and they are very keen on understanding the perspective over here. And the kind of transparency, confidence, clarity they get over here with their investments, that really changes the game. So I think UAE is a big tick mark on all the boxes any woman chooses to, whether invest or start business, or have multiple aspects, towards her different businesses. I think it secures.
Absolutely. We have discussed the positives of a woman in UAE, but every market has some or the other cons as well. If you have to outline one or two challenges which women still face in UAE, which can be improved, do you have those one or two pointers as well?
I think the constant pressure of looking good, the perspective, the perception over here for women founders is a lot of pressure on them all the time. Uh, to keep looking that everything's good, everything's progressing, even though sometimes a lot of things they're figuring it out still. So it's the speed, the pressure, on the stress of constantly being out there, being visible, to create that kind of perception of everything is good and big and becoming bigger is something that I feel, yes, this could be because it's very highly competitive. So the competition is constant over here. And if you are not resilient, if you're not agile, if you are uh, not sure about, the hard work you want to put into it, and you are sure of your vision and purpose, it becomes a little difficult to survive.
How do you think women can create a balance on this, not taking this too much on their heads and working around, giving their best, but not taking this pressure? Because again, a woman is having a lot of hats at home, being a mother, a wife, daughter-in-law, taking care of lots of families inside families, and then taking care of businesses as well. What could you advise them?
Always have a step by step approach. Never just jump onto everything, all right? And then have the right people around you, whether they are your business advisors, whether your team, your, co-workers, your collaborators, partners, experts you are, dealing with or taking the suggestions. So I think having the right set of people around you, having that step by step approach, having confidence in yourself and your idea with which you started that business, and be very sure of the kind of problem you are actually solving in the market and the value you are providing. So anything that has the right value, it may take a little while to establish yourself, but definitely you will see the positive results.
Because you have mentioned about the idea aspect now, a lot of people have this mindset that women businesses are mostly side hustle, not a long-term ideas. What do you think your take is on, are women's in UAE specifically building long-term businesses, or still it is a side hustle?
There has been a shift for sure. So earlier, if you would have asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have said that yes, a lot of women are actually trying to just take it as a side hustle. However, now I see incredible women, talented women building the right systems, long-term businesses, very solid revenue-based business models. And it has been very encouraging and refreshing to see this. And because I deal with a lot of women entrepreneurs on the daily basis, I have been constantly looking into this, that how beautifully they're coming up with a solid business idea which will be sustainable in the market. So it's a mix of, having the side hustle versus the long-term business goals. But I think now, because of the kind of innovations taking place, the kind of exposure that women has, the kind of gender equality, government is always supporting, the kind of system supporting to them, and they're putting their great minds into it, to having a very solid long-term business goal.
Got it. So, since you come from a space in being she helping so many business owners, specifically women owners, to start their business, what do you see the biggest mistakes while setting up their businesses women entrepreneurs are doing?
I think, again, going back that, not looking at when their businesses are going to be monetizing, and how the cash flows will be managed, or how the sustainability will come in the picture by laying up good foundation, is some mistakes that women does. And I don't say that it's all the time, but sometimes it is, because it kinds of get overwhelming as well, because not every woman comes from a background where she has been provided that kind of education, or the situation or the circumstance or the family background where where she has self-learned about, things. So yeah, so she's still exploring, but I think they should refrain from making such mistakes, which initially may look very tiny or general, but it may create a lot of issues later on.
Lot of women entrepreneurs or even women don't like to speak about finance, don't like to get into finance part of it, banking or compliance. And again, on the same podcast, when there are women entrepreneurs coming, they will say, I am building business, the finance part is being taken care by my husband. That is what their words are. So, in your community, how do you take care of this aspect? What mistakes do they take in banking and financials? How do you motivate them?
So I always say that you can be excellent in what you're building, but please do not ignore your finances, and you have to understand them. Although you may get uncomfortable by the aspect of learning finances because it's a natural factor with women, a lot of women that, they don't want to get into it and they tend to avoid it. But I think finance is the blood of any business. You should keep having full understanding and rather control over your own business finances. It's fine that you have your allies like your husband or brother or father or people around you to take care of it, but it's extremely important to keep it in your hands. And this is what on a regular basis of the webinars or experts coming from the financial backgrounds, teaching a lot of our members and talking about it. So I always believe in conversations going, dialogues on, because it keeps hitting in your mind and brain all the time, and then you tend to take some relevant actions.
But do you think personally, as a woman, that women try to run away from finances?
Yes, that's what I just said, that naturally it's a tendency, that women want to do everything, but which is one of the most important part of getting into their own finances. They tend to hand over to the keys to someone else.
Well, why do you think that happens? I'm saying that because even I am curious to know that. Uh, I watch a lot of founders. I follow finance. For a fact, I know that the biggest banks of India are being run by, before it was being run by women only. Arundhati Bhattacharya from SBI, Shikha Sharma, anybody we speak about, they were there on the top. So, and even I watched recently only Palki Sharma mentioning that most of her viewers in terms of finance when she's posting are men, although she's a woman reporter. So where are the women? What is women watching? So she even asked that on a podcast. So I want to know from you, what do you think? Why women are running away from finances?
I think it's the mindset, generational mindset. And that's how we all were like, the grooming was done. That finances is always with the head of the family, being the father or the brother or the husband. So I think mindset here plays a lot of bigger role. But if you notice, until now, the names you have taken are more of the millennials, But if you look at the Gen Z side, I think the younger generation is very much well aware of their own finances. They're very independent, and I think the female aspect, they are just talking about it. They want to understand. They want to keep the control of it. So I think it's changing. But to answer your question, I think it's the mindset.
Well, Gen Z was not today on my table to be discussed, but now you have mentioned, so I will definitely take your pointer. What do you think? How difficult it is for a woman entrepreneur to hire a Gen Z and then make sure that they are sticking around and they work together in a very nice, coordinated manner? Because it's not easy for us to understand that aspect.
I always believe things which are not easy are more valuable. So I think they have a lot of potential. Gen Z comes with a lot of brains, a lot of knowledge, a lot of innovation, creativity. But it's up to us as millennials how to make use of it in the right way. Old tricks will not work with them. That's the first thing I always say. I do have Gen Zs in my team as well. And you have to be very specific in terms of understanding their mentality and behavior. And you should know how to tackle. And you have to bring out the best out of them because they have a lot of energy to give. But a kind of guidance and the right roadmap is something that keeps missing. So I think if you can develop that kind of a system, and the layers in your, a team, and when you are well aware that, you will be working with a Gen Z, then your mind shift has to be there.
Well, Parna, I like to be very clear. I don't sugarcoat things. I personally face this challenge because I come from little bit of a old school belief as well. The problem with Gen Z is that energy is there, creativity is there, no doubt about it. but the stickiness towards the same work is not there. They kind of get bored with the same stuff very soon. But that's how the business is. That's how the work is. You cannot ask for a change every 1 month or every 3 months. How do you tackle that as a woman entrepreneur and guide your community members as well for Gen Z specific?
So, as I said, I'm on a very creative business, to be really honest. From outside, it may look it's a community or it's a platform, but as previously also I said that we keep innovating, we keep bringing the new ideas. I keep giving them tasks, and every project, every year, it may be the same project, but done in a very different manner. And that's somewhere you have to utilize their capabilities and creativity juices to flow, and bring it to a different level. And then there are different ways of showing them whatever they're suggesting, whether it will work or not work. So again, it has to be handled with care. Okay, this is what I say. But if you can handle them with care, the value aspect can be great.
No, definitely. I think somewhere I've got the sense, Hemant, figure out yourself. You're in banking, you're not in my space. So I'll have a conversation more on that, because our business is kind of more of same things, more of a KYC policy driven, process driven, where even if we try to innovate, it's pretty difficult because again it's compliances and all, but I'll definitely work on that. I've seen recently Vio Bank done a different level of job altogether in their app. They have put some reels where founders can show their reels and all. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you have to innovate with them, and they have to become a part of your team integrally. So they should never feel that only the orders are coming from the top and they have to execute.
yeah, that's will not
You
work with
have to
them.
practically involve them. And I think that's a great way of, like, making use of AI as well. Again, going back to your question, that how AI. So I think Gen Z, AI, all the transformation is happening at the same time. We have to look at it from the positive angle, and we should know how to make use of them.
No, definitely. This will come on this once we are on the same tangent. I'm sure it will work around in the best way possible. It's just that little bit of gap which will be filled over time. Now coming on to real estate and wealth building. So if I have to speak about women's investing in real estate, stock markets, or any other asset classes, why do you think women still take a backseat? Or if you think they are taking the decisions now, what are they doing, where they are investing?
Because of a lot of awareness that has been generated in the market, be it social media or, the regular kind of networking sessions or webinars or experts coming in the picture or different communities talking about it, a lot of women have actually opened themselves towards understanding how the investment works. Now, coming again, investment comes in different ways, different forms. You're coming from that background and you can understand it pretty well. I still suggest, since the time I have entered into the real estate industry, and I have been discussing a lot of. So let me just clarify over here. My forte has been a lot towards how I can guide real estate investments for women's financial independence. How to bring them to that ground of clarity so that they don't shy away from making decisions or taking decisions by themselves, with full confidence and trust.
But
And given the different choices and making them understand in depth that, particular investment into particular industry, because real estate also comes in different formats, how it is going to help them, why it is important for them, how it is going to save them in their future long term, right? A lot of these aspects. So I think now women investors are very profound. They're very open to the ideas. A lot of them, as per the studies as well, I think 6 or 7 out of the 10 says that we want to invest, but we don't know. We don't have a proper guidance. So I think from the mentorship perspective, from the guidance perspective, more and more experts needs to talk about it, and women actually are ready, to hear, to listen, to get that right platform or the right channel who can guide them with the right investments.
Well, I'll tell you a fact. If I mean you're from real estate only, whenever I speak to anybody in real estate, be it in India, UAE, or any other part of the world, so if there is a real estate agent who wants to sell a property to a customer, he will always try to tell if it's a man who's he's engaging with. He will say, "I would like to meet you with your wife," because the ultimate decision of an investment is always taken with confidence of wife. But on the same contrary, I have seen that women are not coming up front themselves to take this decision, stand alone independently that I want to invest in this property or I want to buy this stocks. This is still not.
Yeah, because the clarity of understanding is missing. The knowledge is missing. How the outcome of their decision and what will come onto them is missing. They're not aware about it. So once the awareness, the right awareness is being generated, and since the time I have been into this industry, I'm seeing fabulous way how women are opening up and connecting with me and asking me that what can be different ways of developing their investment portfolios. So I think somewhere the gap in the market is about the knowledge, is about the exposure of women investors towards the right investment channels. Confidence they have to develop themselves. If today I would like to invest somewhere, first step is my own confidence that yes, I am ready, and then I seek out for the right kind of knowledge or expert or consultant who can guide me towards it. So what I'm seeing here is the shift in the openness and readiness, so that readiness has increased a lot.
What I have felt, I agree to one certain extent, this part that lack of confidence is there for sure.
Yeah.
Because this is the first time that women will go out and say, I will buy. Once it starts, then everybody will be motivated that yes, she has done it, I will do it. But there is one more angle, is the risk aspect. Again, the insecurity part of it, that if something happens, who will take the blame? That risk of taking, like if I give a choice to a woman to invest in real estate versus fixed deposit versus a stock market, I think they will choose fixed deposit because of that security that I will get my money back plus a bit of interest, not that I would get my money plus X amount. So how do you break that?
So again, coming back to making them understand as a consultant is what my role is. And I face this many times, when people have certain amount of, investments, which they are interested in doing, especially women, and they are always looking out, seeking out for the safe options, as you said. So you as a consultant, it is your duty to first understand their personal requirements, their risk appetite, their future requirements, and how exposed they are already towards the other type of investments. So it's a whole math actually. So as a consult, so that's why having the right consultant for your investment requirements is extremely important. And I think that's somewhere women have been greatly connecting with me, and my company Oryx Privy Real Estate, where they are finding that kind of clarity and confidence, and a lot of choices with their own freedom to make that, okay, this is the right one, I will go ahead with this, and I'm sure that this is going to prove good to me.
All right. So a well-researched proposal, a great information, a complete hand-holding of understanding what exactly you're getting into it will definitely motivate the woman.
For sure, 100%.
Now coming to the Oryx, your real estate company, again, which is mainly focusing on the luxury real estate investments. So if I have to ask in terms of UAE only, what is the difference between the luxury real estate investment versus an affordable market, and why people should invest in luxury real estate?
So luxury real estate market is definitely something which is like the top, investors or the family businesses or the kind of people who want to amplify or multiply their investments and, the growth aspect and the revenue aspect look at. Um, any market, be it any country, has both the options. We are fortunate to have a lot of luxury options over here in Dubai market. And to be really honest, a lot of real, kind of returns, which we call as ROI, investing into the luxury market is what investors get through in this market. So that's the main difference, the ROI play, because when you have a mass-led approach with the ordinary inventories in the market which is supplied to you, versus you have something very niche, very luxury, very limited. There's always a different kind of market and demand to it, and a different kind of ROI that is generated. So yeah, so that's the major difference between how we look at from the luxury angle.
Definitely, because the supply is very limited in that aspect, and it will always get you a much better ROI compared to the affordable market. But in a situations like this, when we are in a geopolitical tension situation, I think the most riskier investment currently would be the luxury real estate as well. So, how do you overcome this thought process and still keep on thinking in terms of luxury real estate if you are that kind of investor?
Look, I slightly differ from the whole social media aspect that was going around in terms of the right now, the real estate market is not going to work, or, there's going to be a high risk factors, or be it the luxury or non-luxury. At the moment, we are seeing a lot of people, investors are actually looking out for this opportunity to invest, and they want to, and with this kind of group of investors who actually fall under the luxury aspect, the beauty is that they know how to time the market and how to take the leverage of it. So on the contrary, where the rumors are that it's not working out for us, we are seeing great demand, from both the sides, from the sellers as well and from the buyers as well. A lot of investors were very keen in investing at this time so that they can leverage the situation, and whatever losses they might have made in their other businesses, they can recover through whatever opportunities they're getting right now. So there's different kind of way they think and they look at. And again, with the luxury industry, it's always about the risk appetite as well. Their risk appetite is higher. If
Right. So, are there any distress deals with you?
Definitely, there's a lot. You can get in touch, and your followers can get in touch as well. We've been dealing with it day in, day out.
No, I think that is where the difference lies. Even me coming from business banking and business setup industry, we have co-working space. People are literally messaging one message. Do you have some great deal?
So right now, to your surprise, I would say there's nothing called distress. Because first of all, investors have so much confidence in UAE market and the government and the system over here that nobody is panicking. And rarely, I mean, I wouldn't call it as distress, but yes, sometimes what happens is, like, say, for example, some investors have invested, a few years ago into certain assets, and they had already recovered their profits and
Much
much
more
more
than
than
that.
that. And then when they are ready to make a shift, or they want to come out with something else and they want to go and sell it in the market, people think that it's distress. It's not distress. They have already made their money. They have secured their investments. So I don't think it's a distress deal kind of a market, and I don't think it will ever be, because Dubai and UAE as such has always shown the resilience and the confidence, and coming back and even becoming more expensive, and the rates going higher the minute the system becomes normal again. Nothing called distress. However, yes, there can be a bit of opportunity where certain leverage of different kind of payment plans or discounts, offers, and all that certain developers or people have,
Momentum.
just to keep the momentum, you can leverage out on those. And if in case there are certain things called distress, or the deals come in through, then definitely yes, you can even look.
No, I think this situation was already outlined maybe 3 to 6 months ago by the UAE ambassador to India. He was on Raj Shamani podcast. He very clearly mentioned that corrections are good for the market as well at times, because again, the market is driven by buyers and sellers. So the momentum was pretty up. If there is little bit correction also, this is the time for great buyers to come and take their chance which they were missing out.
Correct. Absolutely. And see, every market tends to go with a correction. And real estate being so volatile, and we've been since the time COVID or post COVID, been seeing going up and up and up. So I think this correction was meant to happen. It just nobody could time it, and it happened in this way. However, still, it's a great opportunity for investors to relook into, coming back and, showing the confidence and making sure that they're right, investing in the right platforms.
If any investor who wants to invest now, what do you think has changed for them in UAE? Because when I sit with people on podcasts, webinars, anywhere, they tend to use this word that safe haven status of UAE, which it was being enjoyed since years, is gone. Do you think that if that has gone, what do you think UAE has achieved in the same time?
Look, I think there's definitely been a hit onto this word called safe haven, and now we are even more aware that nothing can be 100% uh, you know waterproof, or as per the economies are working around the world, and how the outside uncontrollable situations can arise, and that's very natural for any country to face. It's not only about UAE. And I'm sure the kind of recovery that government is planning, and the kind of resilience and the stability and the confidence it's been showing, it will come back onto the grounds very soon again. And we might even forget that something like this happened. What we must not forget is that you should never lose on your grounds and roots. So if you have been here successfully, completing so many years, so for example, I have been here in Dubai for over 15 years. I have seen all the different eras of the financial crisis, to the COVID, to the rains, to everything else. The ability of this country to go back so quickly, within no time, and then showing again the upwards of all the investments and the right ways of living, and, the safety and security, and coming back to stability, is something which is commendable. And I don't think anybody should discourage themselves or others by keeping this factor in mind, because this is just temporary and it is not in anyone's control.
I think for me, I look at from a different angle, which came to my mind, I think 15 March or something, that maybe the safe haven status has gone, but there is a new status which has come in. And if somebody tries to even do this, they have security in place to protect. So that thing is there, that if this happens, the security is 100% there, that nothing is going to happen, because everybody had this in mind till the ceasefire was announced, that what will happen. But as we saw, the systems which are in place in terms of security are pretty secure.
Definitely. I mean, this country has again proven that, they are just not here made out of dust. Their system is solid, although it's a new country, pretty much new country in comparison to other big countries. But the vision, the ideas, the whole fundamental over here, and the way they have, supported and secure their own communities, and the reciprocation they receive from all their nationals and expats, is what is commendable. And I think nowhere else in the world you can achieve this so fast.
Definitely. Moving on to a very important part of yours again, networking versus real opportunities. Being she's a community, you must have seen a lot of people trying to network, but they don't get business. So what do you advise them? What things they are doing wrongly, that they are doing so much of networking, but end of the day, they don't receive any business?
So mostly, yes, that you're right, because Dubai is like a community hub and, networking hub, and, people just get carried away with the fact that more you network, more you make your business happen. But networking comes with a strategy. You should know where you are going, who you are meeting, and what is going to be the follow-up. What is the follow-up strategy you're, in place? So, and how clearly you communicate while you're networking with the people, because you might tend to meet 10 people, but you will only remember the ones who are very clear about themselves. So coming back to the clarity angle, it's absolutely necessary. Well, while you meet, while you network with new people, knowing where you are going, knowing whom you are meeting, and how many you will be meeting, what you will be communicating with them, and how you will be following up after the networking is what is important, and that tends to give you the results.
Got it. So if someone has to use a networking platform like Being She or any other platform for that matter, what is the best one way to use that platform to give you the maximum ROI? Networking platform.
It's the consistency, I would say. So you have to be consistent. You have to show up. You have to be relevant at the same time, and you have to keep in touch with the people. So even I always say this in to my sales team, which also applies in the networking platforms or the networking strategy, that no lead is a lost lead. Every lead you have to keep in touch constantly, and you never know, maybe it turns out to be positive after 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years, as long as you are consistent and you're showing them the relevance of the value that you are providing to them. So don't ever think that, oh, I went there, I met a few people and it was just waste of time because I couldn't get anything immediately. Sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. It needs constant effort, and it needs the person in front of you whom you met to understand the kind of value you can generate for that person, and the interest then comes back.
Got it. So what do you think is the biggest differentiation between people who are just attending the events plus those who actually get deals from those events?
The ones who actually get deals are very serious, and they know exactly who they are, what they're doing, and what they want out of the networking they are doing. And the ones who are just attending, they are going without a strategy. So that's the main difference. So if you yourself don't know what you have to fetch out of the time and the effort you are putting in, then you cannot just blame on the networking platform or the communities.
That's up to you. How do you take out? Correct. Now time for the brutal truths.
Okay.
Are you ready for that?
Yes, I will try my best.
If I have to ask you, who should not try to build personal brands at all? So what is that category of entrepreneurs?
If you don't know who you are and if you cannot be consistent.
So if you don't know who you are and you cannot be consistent, is entrepreneurship being over glorified, especially for women?
Absolutely. Because entrepreneurship comes with a lot of responsibilities, a lot of hard work, a lot of pressure. But it may sound like, oh, she's an entrepreneur.
She's a founder, CEO.
She's a founder. She's
group
a
of
CEO.
Companies.
Yes.
Got it. What's one harsh truth about Dubai no one talks about?
It's the perception that you have to live up to. So you have to look good all the time. You have to create that perception about yourself that everything is good, and despite that, a lot is what you're working on underneath.
Okay. If I have to ask you some things in future perspectives, where do you see women entrepreneurship going in next 5 years in UAE?
It's going great, and a lot of industries, they are going to be led by women entrepreneurs because of their great EQ that they bring into the system. They're becoming self-aware. They're becoming very confident about what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be delivering. And they will be definitely solving the real problems in the market.
What could be those industries? Can you outline 2-3?
It could be from the coaching to education to wellness. As a lot of such sustainability again is one of the great industries.
Any chances for banking or financial services?
Banking and financial services, definitely, but when it comes to the consultancy part.
Okay, cool. So are you ready now, Aparna, for the final rapid fire round?
Yes, absolutely. I'm ready.
Are we ready?
Yes.
So personal brand or business first?
Both, but you should know how to balance it out.
Dubai or India for women entrepreneurs?
India to scale, it gives you depth, and Dubai is fast for the global exposure.
Networking events useful or overrated?
Useful if you know your strategy.
Visibility or profitability?
Both. I wouldn't say, one less. It's both equally.
Real estate, asset or liability?
Asset for sure.
Corporate job or entrepreneurship?
If you can take the risk and you can go through the grind, it depends.
One trait every successful woman entrepreneur must have.
Discipline.
Best investment for women today?
Real estate for sure.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much. That was very nice. I would say very raw. I was not expecting you to give clearly, no sugar coating. The answers were literally on the face, and I think that's how they are meant to be, because when we are educating, we are consulting, we should not be giving over motivation. And that's what I like about the podcast. Thank you so much for giving me so much learning coming here on Business Banking and Beyond.
Thank you so much, Hemant. It's been absolute pleasure for me to be here. And I think such initiatives are extremely important, as you said, for the knowledge perspective. Knowledge is power.
Thank you.
Thank you.